Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, and especially welcome everyone from the Spiritist Society of Virginia. Tonight, we were not able to be present at the center because the meeting was canceled due to this beautiful snowy day. But to make it safe, we dismissed everyone, and we hope you enjoy these moments of the God at home. We're going to talk about the importance of bringing these gospel at home meetings or God at home meetings to your very home. And also, we're going to talk about a very encounter with Jesus, between Jesus and Bartholomew. When many people nowadays are very sad, they are depressed, they are in need of hope and consolation, true comfort for their souls. And we have Bartholomew as the very person, like many individuals nowadays, who are happy about the hopeful destiny of all of us, but they're still feeling sad and depressed. So what does Jesus tell him? Is it possible that the words he said to Bartholomew can also bring comfort to our hearts? We hopefully think so. And we are going to begin our meeting here with a prayer. Every meeting has a prayer. As Allan Kardec said in the very book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, he talks about the importance of prayers when we start any meeting, because it is a way for us to relieve ourselves from the tensions of our daily lives, focus on the very moment, and attune with the higher spirits who are taking care of us, as well as with God. So in that sense, we're going to invite our dear Carol Stroh-Snyder, who is here with us as well, to say the initial prayer for us. Hi, Carol. Thank you for being with us today here. Can you say the initial prayer for us?
Sure, no problem. Friends, let's make ourselves comfortable, closing our eyes, focusing on our breathing. As we breathe in, we relax, letting go of any worries or troubles of today. And we concentrate on our mind, our body. So let's together raise our thoughts to the Supreme Intelligence. Dear Father, Mother God, thank you for these special moments of reflection. May you bless all of those who have joined us today. Bless all of those who are connected with us. We ask that you help each of us to open our minds and our hearts to fully acquire knowledge that we receive today. We also ask that you help us to share this knowledge, these feelings, with all of those we encounter, and that we may be mindful in these times of reflection, so that we may take full advantage of our connection with you and the mentors of SSVA. Mentors, thank you for preparing us and all of those who share their knowledge with us today. Thank you for allowing us to participate and cherish this moment together. May we connect with you to pray for 1 minute of inner silence for those who we believe are in need greater than us. Let's take a minute of inner silence and pray for them. May all of those that we pray for be blessed. With the permission of the higher spirits and the mentors, we'll begin tonight's God at Home, and so be it.
So, dear listener, we would like to share with you that Kardec Radio kindly came to our rescue because we are unable to do our meeting at the center in Virginia, like in many other parts of the northeast of the United States, because of the very fact that it's a beautiful snowy day. But it's not too safe for us to be traveling and walking around. We are going to begin this meeting by first reflecting on the importance of understanding the seasons of the year. There is a reason, and you can participate by going to the chat room of Kardec Radio. We've seen Lizzie is there and Fabiola and other friends. You can also participate by asking questions or making comments at the chat room of Blog Talk Radio, or you can also call in at the very number of Kardec Radio, which is live now, 858-769-4705, and we can also talk a little more about the ins and outs of the conversation we're going to have today. First of all, many people are not necessarily prepared to understand the importance and the power of winter season. Winter season is the ancient tradition in China says that it's one of the most powerful seasons because it is an opportunity for us to select the seeds that are going to be growing in spring. And they say the stronger the winter, the better the harvest will be later that year. So it's quite interesting because it will make us reflect about the inner life we are leading as well. And we may be asking what would be winter in our lives. It's almost like common sense, and Jesus himself, in one of the books brought in by the medium Chico Xavier, which is entitled in Portuguese Boa Nova, in English it would be Good News. Jesus himself, talking to Simon Peter, mentions the very, very opportunity about the seasons in our lives, saying that infancy or childhood is like the greenish grass. Youth then are going to be, in adulthood, are going to be the flowers that are blossoming and the fruits that are coming about. And the very elderly years are the fruits of experience and wisdom. This is in the very chapter 9 of the book Boa Nova. So it reminds us of what we're doing in life. How often we spend our whole youth not necessarily planting, sowing, and already preparing for the later years in life. And we're not talking about retirement, material things. We're talking about inner psychological, spiritual resources. Otherwise, we're going to feel really empty and in desperate needs of greater help. So this is an opportunity for us in this snowy day. As you are in the comfort of your home, you're only in the comfort of your home, and we are as well, because we have, thanks to God, made it happen. We have food, we have a blanket to warm us up, and this is pretty much like life. When problems happen in our lives and distress comes along the way, if we have not prepared a true retreat in our inner selves, we will suffer from hunger of the spirit, from the thirst of the soul, and also from the cold of the winter of our difficult emotions. So, dear listener, tonight we celebrate the opportunity of reflecting about the need to collect greater emotional management as well as spiritual resources. So, we are going to talk also about the fact that we need to bring these resources to our very homes. It is what in Spiritism we call the Gospel at Home meeting or the God at Home meeting. And it's a great opportunity here tonight for everyone, especially our friend Maria Fernanda, who is from Brazil and used to be here with us. And we are happy to know she's here connected to us at Kardec Radio in this special meeting. We're going to remind everyone and share the opportunity of doing the God at Home meeting. What is it? You may be asking, well, if I have a Spiritist center, why do I need to do a meeting at home? And what is it? Well, the very, very question that we may be asking was asked by Mr. Davenport when Chico Xavier brought us the book by Emmanuel named Renunciation. It's probably coming about in the English version. In Portuguese is the amazing, one of the best-selling books of Emmanuel named Renuncia. And in page 179, when Mr. Davenport asks Alcyone about why do we need to do the God at Home meeting if we have churches, if we have religious organizations, why do we need to do it at home? Well, good question. And this illuminated mind explains to us, based on the teachings of the Master, I am fully aware that we need to make our home the true temple of our Father. It is also in the comfort of our homes that we are going to find family members or friends who are ill and are in need of care. We're going to find the opportunity to give them a hand and to bring the ministry of faith at home. So home, she says, is the most noble temple because it offers daily opportunity of effort and adoration. Each individual of our daily life under the same roof represents like an altar for the cultivation of goodness, care, and comprehension. Each home is an opportunity to distribute faith and hope. And she keeps on going by explaining that it is exactly in our homes that we have the best opportunity to commune with God. So in that regard, we need to share with all of us the importance of having established in our homes these moments that we name the gospel or the God at Home. Are you fully aware of what it is? If not, Carol and I are going to lead you into the topics on what it is to do the God at Home. It's vital, it's important, right, Carol?
Yes, very important.
So, Carol, we usually say we do, how frequently we do or we should do the God at Home meeting?
We should do it once a week, with, if possible, with all family members or everybody who lives inside the household.
But once a week. So does it mean like we need to establish a day and a time that is always the same every week?
Preferably, yes. The mentors are very busy, so it's important for us to connect with them and say, okay, on Tuesday at 8 o'clock, we'll do our God at Home, and then they'll schedule and they'll be there. So it doesn't mean they're not with us the rest of the week, but they'll take special care and special time to be there with us during that time. So it would be better if we did it the same time, the same day, every week.
For example, as Carrie is saying, so it doesn't matter the time in the day. If you decide you and your partner or your children or your friends, roommates, whomever is there under the same roof is willing to do it, and the best time to be together is going to be at 5 a.m. on a Friday. Okay, so be it. The mentors, as Carol mentioned, they are going to be with us. And the importance of doing that specific scheduling, as Carol was mentioning, is that the higher mentors are too busy. Not that they are not with us, but the ones that are specialists in rescuing entities who are often around us or resolving major issues in our lives, good psychotherapists, good doctors of the soul, good nurses of the heart, they are too busy. So when we schedule, they already know that at that day and that time, they can come in and proceed with the God at Home meeting. If you want a deeper reference, we would recommend that you read chapters 33 to 37 of the book The Messengers by Andrea Lewis through Chico Xavier. There we're going to see the whole behind the scenes of the God at Home meeting. So Carol, what if I am the only one in my house who is willing to do it? Is it a problem if I do it by myself?
No, it's not a problem at all. And as Jesus reminded us, we're never alone. So even though we might be alone in the physical realm, we're never alone.
Great. And then we would say, what do we need to prepare, Carol? What do we need? How is it structured?
It would be best for us to use some type of reference material. Some books that have been recommended would be the Gospel According to Spiritism, or another book would be Jesus at Home. We would start by getting everybody collected, or if you're going to do it by yourself, to sit at a table. Bring a cup of water to the table next to you. We would sit down. First, do a reading from some other book, a short reading, just to help us to connect with the mentors. Then after that, do an initial prayer. And then do the reading from the Gospel According to Spiritism, or for Jesus at Home, whatever book you choose as a family. Then talk about the message as a family. If children are participating, you can ask them to draw things, to do things with clays and other things, to involve them during this process. And then after that, do a short prayer, drink the water, and that's it. It doesn't have to take long. It's just important for the family to take the time and do it together once a week.
Exactly. As Carol is emphasizing to us, it doesn't need to be long. If you take like 15, 30 minutes, or an hour max, 15 minutes is better than nothing. It's better than doing nothing. And Carol, but the problem is that sometimes people forget. What should they do if they forget? Oh, that day is like, oh my gosh, this week we forgot about it. What should they do? Like, wait for another week, or what should they do?
My recommendation would be for them to schedule another time during that week that everybody would be able to be together, and not wait a whole week until the family waits for the day of the week that they usually do. That way they had the time at least that week to get together, to reflect a little bit about God's message.
Exactly. So some people ask, can I read the Bible because my partner likes the Bible, they're not spiritist? Is that okay, Carol?
Yes, it can be any book, as long as it's a book that has good teachings, I would say Christ consciousness teachings, but it can be any book they choose to use.
Yeah, so as Carol has just told us, it is clear to us that there is an opportunity for us to understand more about the respect to each other's religion. When Joana de Cusa, who was one of the followers of Jesus, she was actually a Roman, very wealthy woman at Jesus' time. She started following Jesus' teachings, and her partner was not really, he didn't care at all about it. So she approached Jesus and asked, "What should I do? Shouldn't I, enforce it, and shouldn't I, propose that he takes it?" Jesus said, "No, it doesn't happen that way. You have to respect his own choice. But it doesn't mean you don't follow it, but you keep following it by respecting his choice as well." Well, and in there, we're going to find great inspiration as well for us when we find family members, relatives, that they don't really care. And that's okay as long as we take care of ourselves. Because in the aftermath of life, what happens is we're not going to respond for what others have done, but what we have done. So it's very important that we are true to our belief, that we're true to the teachings, applying it in our lives, and not enforcing it onto anyone. So right now, we, Carol, are going to go to step number 2. People may be asking, what is it? It's a beautiful message, a beautiful dialogue between Jesus and one of his disciples named Bartholomew. Bartholomew was a depressed man. He had lots of sadness in his heart, like many people nowadays. And Jesus was very observant of his attitude and his sadness. And one day he approached Bartholomew. We don't have the full book yet in English, which is the book Boa Nova by the Spirit Brother X through Chico Xavier. But at least this is one of the articles that is already published in the Spiritist magazine. And you can read it because it is in the latest issue of the Spiritist magazine, which can be read free of charge at thespiritistmagazine.com. Right now, dear listener, we're going to listen to the whole conversation and the description that Brother X brings to us on that very encounter. Soon after, we're going to break it down to bring the teachings as true vitamins for our souls. If you have any questions or comments, again, you can call us at 858-769-4705 to participate or to talk to us through the chat room of Blog Talk Radio. Let us listen to this. It's entitled Take Heart.
Take Heart by Humberto de Campos, Spirit, through the psychography of Chico Xavier, the medium.
The Apostle Bartholomew was one of the most dedicated disciples of Christ since the early times of his preaching along the Tiberíades. All his efforts were employed to follow the Master in his divine work. However, Bartholomew was sad, and innumerable times Christ would find him in deep and painful meditation. This is probably the reason why, during one night, while Simon Peter and his family were involved in their domestic chores, Jesus took the opportunity of a few instants to speak lengthily to Bartholomew's heart. After Jesus' affectionate and fraternal question, Bartholomew allowed his sensitive spirit to express itself. He shyly exclaimed, Master, I will never be able to explain to you the reasons for my bitter sadness. All I can say is that your gospel fills me up with hope for a kingdom of light that awaits our hearts beyond, on high. When you clarify that your kingdom is not of this world, I experience new courage to cross the miseries of the path on earth, because here the seal of evil seems to obscure the purest things. Everywhere you see the victory of crime, the game of ambitions, and the harvest of disillusion. The voice of the apostle became stuffy by the tears. Nevertheless, Jesus stared at him calmly and spoke with serenity.
Our philosophy, however, is of the gospel or of the good news. Have you ever seen, Bartholomew, good news not produce joy? You are doing well by keeping your hope in face of these new teachings. I want to inspire my disciple spirits to take heart. If I have had the occasion to teach that my kingdom is not of this world, this does not mean that I do not intend on extending that to the hearts of those living on the earth. Do you think that I would come to this world without this comforting certainty? The gospel will have to flourish first of all in the soul of the created beings, before it can give fruits in the spirit of the crowds. Moreover, I come from my Father, full of strength and trust, and my message will produce great jubilation for those that will receive it with their hearts.
After a pause, while the disciples silently contemplated him, the Master continued.
Terrestrial life is a rocky road that leads us to the long arms of God. Work is the march. Common struggles is everyday walk. The delicious morning instants and the nocturnal hours of serenity are the resting points. But listen well to me. During activity of physical rest, the opportunity of an hour, of a light action, of a humble word is the invitation of our Father for us to sow His sacred blessings. In general, human beings abuse this precious gift by placing their imperfect needs before God's purpose, disturbing their own march. From that result, the roughest obligatory journey in order to rectify the faults committed and many times fruitless labors. Due to these reasons, we observe that the earth travelers are always low-spirited. In the obsessive need to fulfill their own will, they injure themselves on the rocky roads. They close their ears to spiritual reality. They close their eyes with the shadow of rebelliousness and drop tears in desperate shouts and bitter moans, without seeing the true crystal fountain, the charitable sky star, the flower's perfume, the words of a friend, and the clarity of the experiences that God has spread for their journey in all the aspects of their path.
There was a small interval in the affectionate considerations. After that, without reaching a complete perception of Jesus' words, Bartholomew questioned, "Master, your clarifications dissipate my sorrows, but does the gospel demand from us permanent strength?"
Truth does not demand, it transforms. The gospel could not demand special state of mind from its disciples. However, it is necessary to consider that joy, courage, and hope should be constant traits of the disciples' everyday activity. Why focus for a moment on a nightmare if we know the reality of the eternal glory with our Father?
The fisherman asked with a restless look. And when the business of the world opposes us, and when everything seems to be going against us? Jesus, however, having completely perceived the reason of these questions, clarified with kindness.
Which one is the best business of the world, Bartholomew? Would it be the adventure made by weight of gold? Many times gagging the heart and the conscience in order to increase the worries of the material life, or the definite enlightenment of the soul toward God, which is solely fulfilled by the individual's good will that wishes to march towards God's love in between the shrubs along the way? Wouldn't the misfortune in the world of business be a friendly invitation for the created being to sow with love? An indirect request that can remove the illusions of the earth to the truth of the kingdom of God?
Bartholomew kept the answer in his heart, though experiencing some strangeness, and soon after, remembering that his mother had departed to the shadows of the grave not too long ago, he still anxiously asked, "Master, would it be justifiable our sadness when we lose a loved one?"
But who is lost if God is the Father of all of us? If those buried in the mud of crime will glimpse one day the dawn of redemption, why lament in desperation the friend that has departed by the call of the All-Powerful? The death of the body opens doors to a new world for the soul. Nobody will truthfully be an orphan on earth as much as nobody will be ever abandoned, because everything is from God and we all are His children. That is why each disciple of the gospel has to be a sower of peace and joy.
Jesus became silent, like he had completed his judicial and serene exposition. Due to the advanced hour, Bartholomew said goodbye. That night, the look of the Master offered him a brighter and sweeter light. His hand softly touched Bartholomew's shoulders, leaving a healthy and unknown sensation. Even though Bartholomew was born in Cana of Galilee, he was then residing in Dalmanutha, to which he headed, gravely meditating on the lessons that he had received. The night seemed prettier than ever. Up high, the stars looked like the glorifying lights from God's palace awaiting its created beings with beams of joy. In his eyes, the waters of Gennesaret were more placid and happier. The mild winds were whispering caressing inspirations like a delicate postal mail that reached him from the sky. Bartholomew started to recall the reasons for his inexplicable sadness, but with surprise no longer found them in his heart. He remembered of having lost his affectionate mother. However, he thought it over with more amplitude in regards to the purpose of the divine providence. Was not God his father and mother in heaven? He recalled his life's tribulations and pondered that his blood brothers bothered and slandered him. However, was not Jesus a generous and sincere brother? He revisited his material failures. However, what was his fishing or the cupidity of the businessman from Bethsaida and Capernaum compared to the light of the kingdom of God, which he labored to build in his heart? He reached his home at daybreak. Far out, the first rays of the sun seemed like messengers of celestial comfort. The singing of the birds echoed in his soul with harmonious notes of deep joy. The lowing of oxen had a different tone in his ears. His soul was now clear. His heart was relieved and happy. When the hinges creaked the door, his brothers gave way to scurrility, accusing him of being a bad son, a vagabond, and a traitor of the law. However, Bartholomew recalled the gospel and felt that only he had enough joy to give to his brothers. Instead of reacting harshly like the other times, he smiled with kindness of the friendly explanations. Bartholomew's father equally accused and banished him. However, the apostle found it natural. His father did not know Jesus like he did. Since he was not able to explain himself,
he kept the assets of silence and found himself in possession of a new happiness. After resting for a few moments, Bartholomew took his old fishnets and demanded his boat. He had a word of friendly consolation to all his work companions. The lake felt more accommodating and prettier. His work companions were kinder and more forthcoming. In the afternoon, he did not question the salesmen. However, he fulfilled their spirits with benevolent words and with a captivating and educational attitude. Bartholomew had converted his misfortunes in a song of joy into a regenerative breath of the teachings of Christ. Everyone looked at him with surprise, except Jesus, who jubilantly knew the new mental attitude of his disciple. The next Saturday, the Master climbed by the lake shore, which was surrounded by a number of followers. The crowd agglomerated men and women of the people, Jewish and Antipas officials, and a great number of Roman soldiers. Jesus started to preach the good news. At a certain point, he told, according to Matthew, that
the kingdom of heaven is similar to an undiscovered treasure hidden in a field. It was then found and hidden by a man that, moved by pleasure, sold everything he had and bought that field.
In that instant, the Master's eyes gazed over to Bartholomew, that contemplated him captivatingly. The soft light of his generous eyes deeply penetrated the apostle's inner soul due to the kindness that he noticed. The humble fisherman understood the delicate allusion of the teaching, experiencing a light and satisfied spirit after having rid of all the vanity that he had not yet freed himself, so that he could acquire the divine treasure in the endless field of life. Extending to Jesus a look of love and recognition, Bartholomew wiped a tear. It was the first time that he cried of joy. The fisherman of Dalmanutha forever adheres to the eternal jubilee of the gospel of the kingdom.
From the book Boa Nova by Humberto de Campos through Chico Xavier, published by the Brazilian Spiritist Federation. Its version in English is not available yet.
Dear listener, I hope you're not crying, because we are. This is truly moving, and we hope you're moved as well. It's one of the most beautiful passages in the Gospel of Jesus. It's a true account brought in by the illuminated hands of the medium Chico Xavier. The spirit author who narrates the whole case is Humberto de Campos, or the pseudonym Brother X. Right now, I would like to break down the many teachings of this passage with a great discussion here with Carol Stroh-Snyder and also Kirsten de Mello. We're going to open the line for both of them so we can chat a little more. If you want to make a comment or ask a question, call in at 858-769-4705 or write down at your comment or question at the Blog Talk Radio chat room at Kardec Radio. Thank you, Carol and Kirsten. The lines are open. Thank you for being here with us. How are you, Kirsten?
I'm good, thank you. How are you guys there at Kardec Radio? Hi, Carol. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, everyone.
Great, thank you. Carol, you're there? Well, hopefully.
All good.
All right, great. All right. I thought maybe she's still crying and sobbing. She can't speak. Because it's truly moving, right? I mean, Bartholomew represents many men and women of the world today, if not in their whole lives, at least in some phases of our lives when we are sad and depressed. And Bartholomew was feeling just like that. So many frustrations in the material life, so many frustrations at home with his brothers and his father, the passing of his mother. So Jesus comes and brings a lot of comfort. So what is your feeling about it, Kirsten?
First of all, we wanted to thank you so much for translating that into English and now making it available for anyone who can listen to it. It was extremely moving. It's almost as if we don't even have words to say. It's as if that the passage just sort of goes into your soul and does something to you and brings out this divine essence. It sort of quenches a thirst you never knew you had until it gets quenched. And then you realize, wow, I guess I was really thirsty after having had that type of spiritual nourishment. And it's amazing. It's just a brief story. And I think what you said is right, Vanessa, that Bartholomew is not like, there's everyday Bartholomews. We all have conflicts. And we see that the Master, Jesus, how he comforts in such a honest yet loving way. And that is what is, I think, is part of the profoundness of it, is only the Master comes and says things to us, and we know that he himself is this great medium between us and God, and he just really comforts our heart in a very non-judgmental way, but all accepting. And I believe in the depths of all of our hearts and our souls that what we desire is just to feel his presence with us, which is that loving, all accepting, and also wanting us to join his team. And it's so beautiful, and I just wanted to share that, and thank you guys for translating that.
Thank you, Kirsten, for your comments as well, and Carol. So, what were your thoughts regarding the whole case of Bartholomew and Jesus?
It's a beautiful passage to remind us about being in good spirits, and what I mean by in good spirit is to be in good cheer, the importance of our state of mind and how we see things. And I liked very much the passage when Bartholomew asks, but is following your teaching really to be in this constant, I can't remember exactly what excerpt that he used, but it's something like the word that he used in Portuguese is fortaleza permanente, which is permanent. Vanessa, can you help me with the word?
I mean, maybe permanent strength and right, being perseverant.
Yeah, and then Jesus says, "Well, the truth doesn't exist. It doesn't make you do it. It transforms you." So I think reminding us that we have to have courage and hope all the time, and the importance of faith in our lives. So it's very touching to remember those things, because sometimes I think we forget that it has to do with our state of mind and our attitude towards things and how we see things.
Exactly. I think, Carol, when you're talking about how we see things, what is fascinating from a psychological perspective, Kirsten and Karen, dear listeners, is about the shift in Bartholomew's perception that was triggered by the clarifications of Jesus. Here we are talking about the reading of our ignorance and how empowering that is, because this is the true goal of Spiritism, is make us do exactly the same pathway. Maybe the lenses we are using are blurring our vision of life, of ourselves, but then we use these drops of light and everything becomes so clear. Everything, it's almost like that song, I can see clear now, the rain is gone, but the snow is not gone yet. Right? So we're still under snow time, but it's pretty much like that. So I would like just to take a few excerpts and discuss with you too, and if other listeners also would like to join the discussion, step by step into how Jesus promoted that shift in Bartholomew's perception. First of all, he says to Bartholomew, our philosophy, however, is of the gospel or of the good news, and he asks, Have you ever seen, Bartholomew, good news not produce joy? And why don't we keep that joy? And he explains soon after when he says, the problem is that people most often use, and he says in this way, the very words of Jesus are when he said, in general, human beings abuse this precious gift by placing their imperfect needs before God's purpose, disturbing their own march. He's talking about a lot of things here. What do you guys think about this very statement of Jesus?
Go ahead, Carol. I don't want to, if you wanted to say something first.
Well, I think we sometimes forget what our true needs are. And we think that sometimes we need to do something, but in reality, we don't really need to do that. And we get caught up in, wanting to do things. And for example, I was reading a magazine about, how to be more mindful and how to pare down things in your life, because I'm guilty of putting too many actions. So when I think about, do I really need to do all these things? No, but because I put these things as a blockage in my life, then I feel like a failure because I didn't accomplish all those things in my list, and it's a circle that goes around. So it reminds me to really concentrate. I know this was a trivial example, but to truly concentrate, what are our true needs and what are God's needs for us to fulfill? What is God's will and not what is my will?
Exactly. And I think, Carol, when you say that, it reminds me of Chico Xavier. Because, for example, Chico Xavier accomplished quite a lot. By the 30th book, he could have said, well, it's enough. These are masterpieces. I'm done. I'm going to do healing work now. But Emmanuel said, now we're going to do 30 more books. And instead of his own will, he allowed the will of the Supreme Intelligence to play a role. So I think what Kara is telling us about is substituting our mundane will for superior will. And we'll never go wrong when we sacrifice our lives like Chico Xavier did for the greater good. We will go wrong when we keep the achievements only for ourselves and those who are closer to us. Right? Kirsten, you have something else also to add?
Yeah, what comes to my mind is from the Spirit's book, actually. I think it's question 714. And the Spirit sort of talk about when we as human beings, we create unnecessary needs. And because the divine laws are already written in our conscience, right? So we have this inner compass, but then we begin to create all these other habits that are unnecessary. So we thus put our needs before what we are really is our divine nature or our divine essence, those laws that are meant to guide us. So we sort of, confuse things and put off our progress. Eventually we will, because progress is inevitable. But you're right, if we can just tune in and balance our mind to our divine essence and these divine laws, we can be as great as as what God has set out for us to be in this incarnation, and fulfill our reincarnatory plan. If we can learn to balance ourselves better. I mean, everyone has their purpose in life. Not everyone can be a sheeple, but we have all our own purpose. And what I liked so much about this story is that it's so universal. And I think it can touch anybody's heart at any level that they're at. It doesn't say you have to be anything greater than what you are, but it's very inspiring. It's encouraging for us, and to accept, as Bartholomew went home, in his own home he's being belittled and made to feel bad, but he holds that truth that Jesus shared with him, and it was like his own protection, in a sense, and his own inner peace. And it's something beautiful, because we see that Bartholomew more than likely wasn't necessarily an extraordinary human being, but just probably average. So we know that type of inner peace is attainable. It makes it more tangible, I guess, for us.
Exactly. And when we're saying these things about Chico, we're reminding a very passage of this message that Jesus said. Listen to me well during activity or physical rest. The opportunity of an hour, of a soft action, of a humble word is the invitation of our Father for us to sow His sacred blessings. So Jesus is not telling us, go and be who you're not. He's just saying, just multiply your talents. And it reminds us of the very person we talked about at the beginning of the program when we were talking about the importance of the God at Home meeting. And we read an excerpt of the book Renúncia, or Renunciation by Emmanuel, when Alcione, she was the very Chico Xavier in her family's life. And that's what Jesus is talking about. The person who really places God's will before her own will, and that's what she did. As an example, we're not talking about the whole world. We're talking about our nearest neighbor. That's what Jesus is inviting us for. Again, He says, listen well to me. During activity or physical rest, the opportunity of an hour, of a soft action, of a humble word is the invitation of our Father for us to sow His sacred blessings. It's fascinating how Jesus always turns to God and bridges to God. Now, Carol, there is another part of this message that is quite fascinating when Jesus extends His explanations to Bartholomew, and He talks about the very traits of the disciples' everyday activity. When He says that truth does not demand, it transforms. The gospel could not demand special state of mind from its disciples. However, it is necessary to consider that joy, courage, and hope should be constant traits of the disciples' everyday activity. It's almost like He's giving us a formula. He's saying these three main elements in your daily life will keep you up: joy, courage, and hope. Carol, help us please break down how we take these three elements, joy, hope, and courage, in our daily lives.
Let's break it down one by one. I think in joy, sometimes it's only about big happiness. But taking joy in the moment, taking joy when our spouse, our father or mother acknowledges us or says something, taking joy in something we do, in our coworker, in the way they treat us. So not thinking that joy has to be these grand moments, our wedding or somebody's birth or something like that, but joy in everyday life and everything we do, and then seek that in what we do, being joyful with the actions.
Mm-hmm.
With the courage, it reminds me, when we pray, I always ask for courage because sometimes we forget that we are able to do more than we can do. We forget that we have these inner talents that God has given us, that we can flourish if we just follow God's will. So having the courage to step outside of our box and do a little bit more for ourselves and for others in our lives. And then hope, for me, I think it's the most important, because without hope in my life, I think it would be very hard to move on. So hope, I think, for us to see and connected with faith. Mm-hmm. And having hope in our life that if things are not good right now, things will be better in the future. And having this constant hope, this constant faith that everything will work out and everything will be all right. It might not be what I imagine, but for sure it will be what God wants it to be. So I have hope and I trust in Him that everything will be okay.
Exactly, Carol. And it reminds us of a passage in the Gospel according to Spiritism when you said hope and the connection to faith. the passage entitled Hope, the Mother of Faith and Charity. Without hope, there is no faith, there is no charity. And Jesus wraps it up by saying, why focus for a moment on a nightmare if we know the reality of the eternal glory with our Father? So, now, Kirsten, in the next, as soon as Jesus explains and proposes these three main elements for every disciple in their everyday activity, joy, courage, and hope, Bartholomew asks a question. He asks, but Master, and when the business of the world opposes us, and when everything seems to be against us? And Jesus kindly replies, what is the best business of the world, Bartholomew? Would be the adventure made by the weight of gold, many times gagging the heart and the conscience in order to increase the worries of the material life? Or the definite enlightenment of the soul towards God, which is solely fulfilled by the individual's goodwill that wishes to march towards God's love in between the shrubs along the way? Wouldn't the misfortune in the world of business be a friendly invitation for the creative being to sow with love, an indirect request that can remove the illusions of the earth to the truths of the kingdom of God? Kirsten, please help us break down this fascinating teaching by Jesus.
It's definitely profound and yet simple in the same way. I would say if we could respectfully break that down, that first the way that Jesus is, how he approaches Bartholomew, you see that he doesn't throw the truth in his face. He doesn't, say it in a harsh way. And Joanna in the book Happy Life, she always is telling us to use truth with the goal of helping and never as a weapon of aggression or revenge. But secondly, it's beautiful because he basically just points out to him, look, you either can choose the harshness of the world or you can choose to sow something that is eternal. And then he touches on something other that is also happens in our day-to-day life, that the negative things or the harshness we may endure in the world or in our lives or at work are a call for us to really reevaluate our purpose and what are we striving for and what master are we really serving? Are we serving God or are we serving everything else? Because we can only truly serve one. You can't serve both, although Jesus was quite clear when he said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but what is to God to God. It's such a friendly invitation and loving to say, what is the most important thing here? I'm paraphrasing what Jesus said. And it is this eternal beings that we are. And, of course, only Jesus can say it in the way that he says it, in such a way that's so loving and inviting, because it touches the essence. And I believe that's what he did. He truly was and is the greatest psychotherapist, greatest psychologist that ever lived. If he goes to the core of the being, he goes to the core of the being and just like how he just touches Bartholomew. And as the text, when you read it before, Jesus knew his heart. Jesus knew what was truly troubling him, and it was an attribute that Jesus had. Not saying that we also can't obtain that in the sense that we can also be loving and kind and to those who, we encounter. I mean, it's a perhaps very humble way to try to break down such a profound teaching, but there you have it.
Yes, Kirsten, it's truly fascinating the way Jesus approaches us. He's our guiding model, so it's certainly an opportunity for us to practice and emulate it, and also how comforting his teachings are beyond words for sure. But soon after Jesus explained about the opportunity we may find in the misfortune of the business of the world as an invitation to sow with love, removing our illusions of the earth, which is so important. We here as spiritists, we know that life goes on. And in the book Heaven and Hell by Allan Kardec, in the first part, Kardec tells us much about how the transition from life to death, and then death to the life in the spiritual realm happens. And the more attached we are to material things, the harder it is for us to detach. So, and it's not about being a millionaire, because some people think that illusions of the earth are all about those who have gold and Mercedes or a Ferrari, etc. No, we can be living in a slum, but if we are attached to our loved ones as if they have to be ours and solely ours, nobody else's. If we are attached to our physical body in a way that we're creating almost like a cult of the body, if we are attached to our material habits in such a way that it makes it harder for us to let it go, we're going to suffer in this incarnation. Well, this is a program we're going to dedicate on March 23rd at Kardec Radio. It's about the preparation for the great transition, when we're going to talk about what we can do to prepare ourselves better, even preparing our living will. It's very important for people to talk to their loved ones today and to their children as young as they are, saying, look, how do you want to be buried? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? How do you want viewing or no viewing? How do you want the viewing? What do you want to do with the things that were yours? So we need to tell people how we want to dispose of the body was given to us. That's our responsibility as well. So we're going to talk about the ins and outs of it. But right now, there is the last question that Bartholomew asked the Master, and probably we do too. Master, would our sadness be justifiable when we lose a loved one? That's a very good question. Is it okay to be sad when we lose a loved one? And what is the answer by Jesus? But who is lost if God is the Father of all of us? If those buried in the mud of crimes will glimpse one day the dawn of redemption, why lament in desperation the friend that has departed by the call of the All-Powerful? The death of the body opens doors to a new world of the soul. Nobody will truthfully be an orphan on earth, as much as nobody will ever be abandoned, because everything is from God, and we all are His children. That is why each disciple of the gospel has to be a sower of peace and joy. Carol, what are your thoughts regarding these beautiful insights by Jesus?
It helps us remind our belief in reincarnation, and that like Jesus said, people are not really lost. We haven't really lost them. They just moved to a different realm. So we shouldn't be. It's normal for us to have grief and for us to be sad because it is a change. But we shouldn't be sad because they died, because they didn't really die. They just lost their physical body. So we should remind also ourselves that when the spirits pass to the spiritual realm, they still feel, they're still connected with us. And if we're suffering and we're crying all the time, saying, why did you leave me? I can't believe you left me, and it's all about me, and how because you left, my life is worse. They feel those thoughts. Our feelings reach them. So we're not doing them any favor by having those feelings inside of us. So it would be the best for us to pray for them to be helped, and remember that we'll be with them again. And this reminds me of the book 50 Years After. I know we always mispronounce.
50 years later?
50 years later, yes. Where one of the main characters, she's very connected with a young man, and he's about to be sent to be murdered, and he's very strong, and he reminds her, I'm not gonna die. I'll be back with you. I have prayed and I've asked God that I reincarnate with you as soon as I can. And we see a couple of chapters later that he's again in her life as a little baby, and she's even told that that's the love of your life who was murdered not too long ago. So we've seen that, and we've seen the book, in other books by Chico Xavier, these stories about the people coming back with our lives. So we shouldn't be sad that they're left, because it's just temporary. We either will be with them again in the spiritual realm, or they might be back with us in this lifetime or in another, here in the physical realm. Excuse me.
Exactly, Carol. When you're saying this, it's reminding us of the opportunity of reflecting every day about our immortality, right? We want to relay 2 comments that were brought to us by participants here, friends at blogtalkradio.com/cardiac radio. Lizzie saying that this passage reminds of the importance of being joyful and thankful for everything that we have received daily and for the opportunity of being here. And also Alex Pranka saying, I think we are given opportunities each day to serve others. It is just a matter of being aware of them. It's so simple as saying good morning to your family members and friends. So Kirsten, one aspect that you mentioned before is about how Jesus was a very skillful psychotherapist of the soul. And it's fascinating because as soon as Brother X narrates the end of the dialogue, he talks about how Bartholomew, even to his own surprise, his perception changed. He really felt a new man, as if he was regaining a new vision of life, to the point that he would face the very difficulties of his daily life at home and at work, and then he used a very technique that we listen a lot being practiced by Chico Xavier and other great minds. He says that he would not explain himself, he would keep the assets of silence. He found himself in possession of a new happiness. It's almost like a miracle. We know miracles don't exist, but it's such a profound shift in his perception. Can you help us, please, Kirsten, break down this fascinating moment in Bartholomew's life?
I sure will try. What comes to mind is taking something more basic to sort of get the idea, sort of like the mechanism as to what is this comparable to. For comparison, we could say that if anyone has ever experienced anything in their life, for instance, that the birth of a new child, and you're just exuding all this joy, and you're absolutely ecstatic, and there's this feeling of ecstasy, and you're surrounded in that joy. And when you are surrounded in that joy and you come across other more difficult things in your life, they're not perhaps as difficult as what they used to seem like. You become a new person because you have changed. So it's a poor example, but if for any of us, for those who are listening, and if you've had something very happy happen to us in our lives, we can, and if you observe enough of ourselves, we see that we shift. Thus, on a larger scale, kind of what happened to probably, we assume, Bartholomew. He had this shift in his emotions, and for sure his vibratory field, his vibrations were able to go to such a level where those old things no longer bothered him as much anymore, because he held that inner peace within him. And it's very inspiring, because it's something we hope that we are working on to achieve that, and we know that it's achievable, again, because who was Bartholomew? He's not unlike many of us, imperfect, but still truly desiring and wanting to be closer to the Master, and being opening and being flexible and not resisting. And that's what's so beautiful about it as well, is he was open and to change and to do better, because oftentimes it's just a matter of us wanting to change. In the Spirit's book, it talks about that we just lack that, just a little bit of effort just to change. That's all we need, just a little bit of a push to, higher our vibration or to change our perspective. And recently I watched this 1.5-minute video of a Holocaust survivor. It was a woman, I believe she was in her hundreds, and they interviewed her, and the interviewer said, well, what is your key to happiness? And she said, well, I just find the joy in everything, because there's joy in everything. There's sadness, but there's joy in everything. If you look for it, you'll find it, and you'll be happy. And I found that to be so inspiring, given the fact that she lived through the Holocaust, and she would have every right to say, well, I suffered. But she didn't. She chose to see something more beautiful, which I find very inspiring.
Exactly. And what you said is true to all of us, because people in their daily lives may have their own Holocaust, difficulties, tragedies, etc. And at the very end of this message, Kirsten and Carol, the kind Brother X describes to us that at a certain moment in the next Saturday, the Master claimed by the lake shore, which was surrounded by a number of followers. The crowd was there agglomerated, and he started preaching the good news, and at a certain point, he told this very phrase: the kingdom of heaven is similar to an undiscovered treasure hidden in a field. It was then found and hidden by a man that, moved by pleasure, sold everything he had and bought that field. In that instant, the Master's eyes gazed over to Bartholomew, that contemplated him captivatedly. The soft light of his generous eyes deeply penetrated the apostle's inner soul due to the kindness that he noticed. The humble fisherman understood the delicate allusion of the teaching, experiencing a light and satisfied spirit after having rid of all the vanity that he had not yet freed from himself, so that he could acquire the divine treasure in the endless field of life. So let us discuss this highlight. It's like the peak of Jesus' teaching to all of us, to the Bartholomew inside of us. The kingdom of heaven, which he said from the beginning is in our hearts, is similar to an undiscovered treasure hidden in a field. It was then found and hidden by a man that, moved by pleasure, sold everything he had and bought that field. What is he telling us here, Carol and Kirsten? Please share your thoughts, because he's telling to all of us there is an undiscovered treasure inside of all of us. Carol? Kirsten?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay. It's interesting. I think if I could describe it this way, it seems as though there's so many different things I could say, but one thing that crosses our mind is that perhaps Jesus is also saying here that this kingdom of heaven, it's something that we must work towards. It's something that also, that once we find it, we completely connect with it. Just the same way that Bartholomew, once he found that peace, he was transformed immediately, and he was changed. So once you discover where it is, you go and you completely give yourself to it, because it's such an amazing feeling that you go and you just, it's like $1 million, you go and you buy that field. I think it's a similar sensation when you find that joy, when you find that peace, you just continue to give yourself into it, and it just perpetuates. But it is something that we can find within us. That's the beauty in it, is that it is within us, just a matter of working on it. And I would say that is one of the things I wanted to say. But Carol, go ahead. I don't want to take up all the time.
Thank you, Carol.
Well, I think it has to do with when that treasure is inside of us, and you find that treasure when you're truly able to rid yourself of any vanity, any jealousy, any feelings that are not true Christian feelings from yourself, really freeing yourself so that you would acquire this divine treasure for the rest of your life. So I think it has to do with us and us freeing ourselves of these feelings of vanity and jealousy and anything else that is not good for us.
Exactly. So here, Jesus is inviting us to find the treasure within, and that's a good day if we are in the snowy Virginia, Maryland, northern United States, or at home somewhere in the sunny Brazil or elsewhere in the world. It is a good time for us to find the treasure. There is a treasure within that is going to give us new life. There is no miracle. There is just a transformation. And it doesn't take a million years. It takes goodwill. So right now we're going to prepare ourselves. If you want to read more, for those who are there and want to read the whole message, you go to thespiritismagazine.com. The latest issue of the magazine has the translation of this article, the one that you just listened at Kardec Radio. It's entitled Take Heart. In Portuguese, it's the chapter entitled Bom Ânimo in the book Boa Nova by Humberto de Campos through Chico Xavier. Right now, would like to begin our final moments. Let us, even if you are at home, through the prayer, we are receiving also the passes. For those who are not familiar with the passes in Spiritism, it's similar to the laying on of hands or to the healing practices with certain differences, but it's the same purpose. It's about bringing greater relief to our hearts, to our physical bodies, spiritual bodies, and gaining new life. We are going to ask our dear Kirsten, because she's here with us today, if she can kindly lead us into the final prayer in this moment tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Involved in these amazing higher vibrations in tonight's heart-filled, love-filled study, we'd like to lift up our minds and the minds of all those listening in both realms of life to our divine Creator. Our Creator and our Governor, Jesus, but not the Jesus of the world who we may have been taught in other areas of life, but a Jesus that is down to earth and close to our hearts. We lift up our minds to thank our Creator and our great Governor for bringing us these amazing teachings, these amazing lessons to all the hearts that have ears to hear. We thank all those who collaborate with your divine will, dear God, who collaborate to console hearts that are suffering, to enlighten minds that are questioning, and to guide those back to the right path who are by the wayside, those who have been forgotten, and those who are not even thought about. We thank all those who continue to answer the call of love and the call of inner enlightenment. We also like to take this opportunity to pray for all those in this world and in both realms of life who are feeling in the depths of their soul these transitions, and perhaps in a bad way, who perhaps may be listening in to Kardec Radio, or who listen every week, sometimes with a sorrowful heart. We pray for them and for all those who are seeking assistance. We pray that all of these wonderful, enlightening messages are heard and echoed throughout this world. May we feel encouraged to continue on our path, even when we encounter hardships and many discouragements from the world. May we take the message of Bartholomew and be reminded that Jesus is calling us and reminding us of our immortality. We thank you, and so be it.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Carol. And thank you. And thank you, everyone who participated here. We wish you a wonderful evening, and let us not forget, take this moment to your home every week. Just think about the opportunity of scheduling a weekly 15 to 30 minutes of your time with your family members or friends to read a passage, talk about it, say a prayer, drink a glass of water that has new energies brought in by the good spirits, and life will be transformed. We may find the hidden treasure inside of our own homes. Thank you, Carol, again.
You're welcome. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, and thank you, Lizzie, for being grateful, and thank you for being there so supportive and attentive as well. Thank you, Fabiola, Alex, Maria Fernanda, and all the other guests. We hope to talk to you very soon, this Saturday at Kardec Radio at 11 a.m. We're going to have a most fascinating interview with Dr. Herbert Benson from Harvard University. He's the very pioneer of the field of the relaxation response, of the mind-body healing. He has written a new book that talks how our mind can truly shift our physical body, and this is true science. He's here with us at Kardec Radio this Saturday at 11 a.m. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening, Kirsten, Carol, and everyone.
Thank you.